Hello and welcome everybody, my name is Chris and today I'm going to talk to you about my return to tube amps with the EVH 5150 Stealth. Enjoy. Thank you very much for tuning in. Now this video will be a little bit of a review and a little bit of first impressions. There will be sound clips and all that. And yeah, just in general, me talking about why the hell did I choose to buy a proper and heavy tube amp in 2024 when there are so many different digital solutions that all work perfectly fine. So if you want to skip ahead to any of these topics or talking points, just use the timeline and I will add all the chapters into the description. And yeah, I think it's going to be a chill ride towards high gain shreddage and riffage. It is not a sponsored review. And with that being said, go grab a bite or a drink and sit back, relax, and let's do this. Now the 5150 is pretty much one of the most recognizable high gain sounds in metal or music history. You would often compare it to maybe rectifiers or certain Marshall JCM models and all these different high gain amps. But for me personally, the 5150 sound is the high gain sound. And when I started to research the different models, I only then learned like how many artists that were very influential on me and my playing and my sound had used them over the years. So the 5150 sound pretty much got hardwired into my brain without knowing it. And whenever I got something like a plugin, or maybe when I got my Helix Stomp, I would pretty much all the time build something when there was not an actual 5150 model available. I would model the sound that I found after the 5150. Now, before we get into why did I purchase this one right there, the 50 watt version, you can see below it there is a 5150 Iconic Series combo. And I had that before that when I wasn't really planning on buying one, like I said, the proper one. And that was pretty much just the luckiest purchase in my guitar history I ever had, because a clearance sale close to me took place when a store closed down, a huge music store. And I think this is the 40 watt version, by the way, the 1x12 40 watt version. And I think back then, that was maybe a year ago or something like that, or half a year ago, the original, the list price was around 720 or 30 bucks, I'm not sure. And I got it for 240 or something, like super cheap. And I just went, okay, I gotta take this with me. I will get some use out of it. I don't know for what yet, but yeah, that's too good a deal to not take it. And it turned out that it was pretty much a lifesaver for different like applications and different rehearsals and actual concerts that I then played over the year. So the sound, especially, I mean, you buy the 5150, the Iconic Series, for the sound. So the high gain sound, I mean. And it's not the same like with the proper one. I can tell you that right now. I'm gonna do a full review on that. I don't know when, but I will do it. So let me know if you're interested in that. But just real quick, the Iconic Series combo is perfect for rehearsals and for smaller gigs and all that. It's super loud. It's a great pedal platform, actually. I use different drive pedals through it. I used it for the HM2 review, and it took the pedal very well. And as you know, the HM2 is not something that is very easy to handle, that amps handle very easily. So yeah, once I added some wheels or casters, I think is the right word, to the bottom, it got even more flexible in terms of transportation, and I'm super happy with it. 40 watt tube amps will definitely be loud enough most of the time, even for regular rehearsals when there is no proper PA. So now I had the 40 watt combo, and that was pretty much good enough, like I said, for most applications. But still, over the year 2024, that is, I played a couple of session gigs with bands who are very old school about how they handle on-stage volume and rehearsals and just their sound in general. And I pretty much came from playing digitally and with in-ears for like the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. And the one band, a death metal band that I briefly joined for a show, I got into the rehearsal space, and there was just this Marshall full stack with it was a 50 watt something, it was a JVH now. You probably know which one I'm referring to, like the 410, but the 50 watt version, on top of an Angle 4x12 and a Marshall 4x12, and just going back into this, pretty much this infrastructure of just fucking loud ass amps and just sheer volume was so refreshing again after feeling isolated with in-ears. I mean, in-ears are fucking great, and I'm a singer, so yeah, it's the most useful shit ever. But still, to coming back into a rehearsal room like I did when I was 15 years old with just half or full stacks on full blast was just so amazing and felt so good that a little spark was there. So now I was starting to, maybe I'm gonna get a proper amp again as well. So this might be something like for the heart and for my soul. And later on, I played in another band who still use amps on stage as well. And they asked me to play a couple more shows with them. And I was like, okay, the Iconic series, unfortunately, just in terms of like stage volume won't cut it if it has to fight against a 2x12 or 4x12 and a fucking, I think it was a Kemper on top, like with the power stage and all that. So I was like, okay, maybe this whole I'm gonna get an amp thing, it started to materialize more and more in my head. And pretty much the final drop then was again like the digital solutions that I had been using for such a long time. I always pretty much made them all sound the same. I made them sound like a 5150. One of my favorite guitar plugins is the Nolly plugin, the Archetype Nolly from Neural DSP, or now the Nolly X. And the first thing that you see when you open the plugin up is the 5150. I mean, it doesn't say it's a 5150, but you can read it up. It's his Nolly's 5150. So I thought, okay, first of all, I love just the feeling of playing a loud amp in a rehearsal room. I need more firepower for shows and tours. All right, and I love just the 5150 sound. All right, I'm gonna do this. And then I started to do some research on the different models, the different versions, like the EL34 version and the 6L6 version, and now the Stealth that I bought. And yeah, it was just a lot of fun to research all these different, what are the features, what are the sounds. And there are so many great videos, like comparison videos on YouTube, that show you all the nuances. And it's yeah, it's a very cool like landscape, I'd say. Now the question remains though, why did I not buy a Kemper or a Quad Cortex, where there surely must be a bajillion different profiles of all the iterations of the 5150. Like, as you all probably know, like in a mix, nobody's able to tell anymore if something was recorded with an actual amp or a profiler or a plugin or whatever. So in terms of just like how it sounds in a mix, there's no discussion more to be had, right? And I'm getting fooled by it just like everybody else. So that's not the reason. Like, of course, everything I'm about to say is going to be very subjective. But on this channel, if you saw one of my like guitar reviews, I talk a lot about like feeling and how like tactile feel and haptics just make me want to play a certain way and make me practice. Not even record or write, but just practice scales. And it's the same with this amp. Like something like a proper tube amp, or maybe an old combo, it doesn't need to be tubed, transistor, whatever, or maybe for someone it's a Kemper. If it's inspiring to you and if it just looks great, then I'd say go for it if you can afford it. This is of course a luxury item. I know that, and I worked my butt off for it. But yeah, just coming into the room and seeing the amp makes me want to switch it on and grab my guitar and write something. And that's a beautiful thing. And unfortunately, I don't have that with just opening up a plugin. Like, it doesn't matter how good the plugin sounds. If it doesn't inspire me, I'm not gonna use it. And like, I have so many fucking, I don't know how many hundreds of old plugins that I don't use because A, they are not like unique enough, or B, they don't inspire me to utilize their sound and write something with them. So yeah, they are just collecting dust on a hard drive. And the same is unfortunately the case with my Helix Stomp. Like, the thing works great, and I've used it on so many stages and for so many rehearsals and with so many different bands. It just works, and it's a workhorse. And for shows where I have to be very compact and need to travel lightly, it's going to be the first choice. But just like looking at it doesn't inspire me at all. Tweaking it doesn't inspire me at all. Like, it's fidgety with the 3 little dials. I have the Stomp XL version, if I did not mention it before. Same thing with the editor. Yeah, it's super logical and it works fine and it's colorful and you know exactly what you have to do. But dragging a mouse from A to B to get to a different sound is just not something I want to do as a musician. And this is a discussion that you can see a lot on synth forums as well. Like, the fight between digital VST synths and actual analog gear has been going on for like decades now. But it is something that I totally understand. And like I said earlier, like, the Kemper works freaking great. It's amazing. Like, everybody knows that. But menu diving and holding buttons and turning dials and clicking through things is not something that I want to do if I just want to pick up my guitar and go. Sure, I could save presets. But yeah, finding a sound is so much more satisfying for me just by turning a dial and here we fucking go. And of course, all of this is like very romantic, and I know that this is coming from a place of nostalgia, right? I still remember very fondly going every Sunday to rehearsal and having all these amps like towering there over us and being so loud. And it's just, if someone grows up now and never knows that, there will be, of course, no point of reference, but I still think it is something to preserve. And amps in general seem to go more and more into the direction of like vinyl or old cars, like acquired taste that you don't need anymore. But if you really are a fan of that whole thing and just love how it looks, how it feels, how it smells even, like an amplifier, if you've ever been to a music store, in an amp room, you know what I'm talking about. Amplifiers, I don't know if it's the Tolex or the electronics, probably a combination of the two, but it has a certain smell, and that is so important for me as an artist, pretty much. And I know that's very like touchy-feely, artsy-fartsy, but it's what makes me, what gets me inspired, and it's what makes me want to play. Now enough talk about why amps are so cool, and let's get to some sound samples. And instead of having 3,000 different settings, I thought I would rather do something like having multiple guitars with different pickups and different tunings, and just show you how the amp translates that into its sound. Due to the sheer volume of the amp, I unfortunately will be unable to mic a cabinet in my apartment. Therefore, I will be using a Torpedo Captor X by 2 Notes as a load box, and then use Get Good Drums Zilla caps as an IR loader. And I figured I will just use a single cabinet with an SM57 for a very basic sound that can probably be replicated with other IR loaders or IR programs, or just packs or whatever. As for pedals, I will put a TC Electronics Sentry noise gate in the effects loop. There won't be any boosters or whatever in the front of the amp, just to give you like the sound in its purest form. In conclusion, I am so happy with that amp, and yeah, it's just a joy to play through it and to finally have it. When I first opened the box and switched it on for the first time and then strummed the chord, I was like, yeah, there it is. And it's, of course, like I said, the plugins work great, the modelers, the profilers, everything is all good. And I'm not comparing it to these solutions, but just for not only for the love of making art or music, but for the love of how you make it, with what kind of equipment you make it. It's such a wonderful thing to have, and it won't mean that I will be buying like a wall of amps anytime soon. But still, it's just, like I said earlier, it's just inspiring to go into the room, to seeing it standing there and, oh yeah, I'm gonna play guitar now. And I finally started to work on a melodic death metal EP. I've been planning that for a while, and I will finally start working on that. So if you're interested in that, yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting, very Bodom-esque, a little bit of Norther and Kalmar and all that. And I will try to make it as analog, quote unquote, as possible, by not using too many plugins and not using too many digital solutions. Not because I don't like them, but just because I want to try it and give it a try and make this interesting for myself and to work within limitations. Because I like working with limitations. I used for a short time, I was a composer for a tiny video game development company, and it was such a joy to work on music where the briefing was pretty much like, I don't know, it needs to be a beach theme, and you can only use instruments that are acoustic, so no synths and no whatever. And it's just, this is like, I like working like that the most, with limitations, like I said. So having one amp for recording an entire EP or maybe an album in the future and trying to get everything out of it is going to be a super interesting experience. And yeah, I'm excited to see where I end up, and yeah, how many times I'm breaking down crying in the end. With that being said, thank you so much for tuning in and listening to me ramble on about why amplifiers smell so good and all that stuff. No, it was a joy to do that. I will probably at some point, I don't know when, we'll do a follow-up video on it, maybe after a year or something, and see how it worked out for me on the road and like with recording through it and all that stuff. I'm just now learning how to probably tweak it and what kind of IRs I can use, and hopefully I can record through it with a proper cabinet at some point. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting time, I think, and it's a lot of fun to getting to know an equipment like really in and out, and where are its strengths, where are its weaknesses, and how can I benefit from all of them. So if you have any questions about the amp or the sounds or the guitars, the pickups, the strings, whatever, just leave me a comment. I love talking about that stuff, and I will make sure to get back to you. If you want to check out a couple of guitar reviews, there is a review about the Alexi 600, there is a review about the FRX, the E2, the Jackson RR24 FRH. And yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing from you and seeing you in the next video. That's pretty much it. I've been Chris, and that's that.